my 9 favorite questions for assessing culture fit in an interview. Now, the reason I wanted to go through this today is the other day I was having a conversation with a few clinic owners. And one thing that came up when I asked them this question, what stresses you out thinking about 2023? What's the most stressful thing? And the thing that came up for nearly all of them was hiring someone out of desperation because there just weren't enough people to hire. There weren't enough people in the market applying, and hiring someone that wasn't the right culture fit, that then in turn caused other people within the organization to be unhappy, to be unfulfilled, and to leave and move on to another role. And we understand that it's not a great hiring environment at the moment for employers. It's just there's a lot of jobs and there's not enough applicants for that. So we have to make sure that when we bring someone into the team, they're the right person and they're not someone who brings others down, and they're not someone who's going to, in the long term, or even the shorter medium term, cause people to want to leave. So here are my 9 favorite questions for assessing culture fit. And before I get into it, like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. We release one video every single week and we try and add as much value as we can. And also, if there's something in particular you would like us to cover, please just throw it in the comments below and we'll be responding to each and every one of those individually. And if there's great content to be made that's going to help you, we will make it. So question number 1 is, how could a manager or leader best support you? And the reason that I'm asking this question is I want to understand from their perspective, what do they feel is the kind of support that they need from someone that they report to? And this allows me to understand ahead of time what their expectations are of me and of the other senior leaders within the team. Because every time we make an assumption, right? Whenever we make an assumption, we leave ourselves open to being wrong. And the issue with just assuming what someone believes is a good leader or a good manager, it really leaves us open to there being a gap between their expectations and where we actually are or what we actually provide them. We may provide all of these things over here that are fantastic, that are maybe work drinks, it might be bean bags at work. Like, you can think of all those sorts of things. It could be a work from home day. It could be one-on-one mentoring. But if their expectations are over here and it's something different that we don't provide, well, then we're not going to meet their expectations, no matter how good we are, no matter how much of all of this stuff over here that we provide for them. Question number 2, if we fast forward 10 years and you got the job and you're still working in our team, looking back, what would have happened to make this a reality? And the idea with this question here is, if we basically want to go, if we're 10 years in the future and you're still working with us and you're happy and you're loving your role here, what did we do? What did you do? What happened to make this a reality? So we're making them think ahead into the future and look back and go, right, well, if I'm still here in 10 years' time, and I'll use a physio example here, I'm a physio. If I'm still here in 10 years' time as a physio, why would I still be in this role? And they might go, well, there would have been an opportunity for me to go back to uni and do my master's, and then I could have specialized in a certain field. And then I want to have a family, probably 7 years in here. And so there was some flexibility around my role and the hours and the days in which I worked that allowed me to do this. And there was also a progression to becoming a leader and a mentor within the business. And just by asking this question and giving people a few hints and things that they can start to think about, or what family life, study, specialties, things like that, you can get them starting to think, well, what is it that I would really want over the next 10 years? And that allows us to ahead of time go, well, if we're interviewing Sandra here and we want to keep Sandra long term, what do we have to make sure that we're putting in place? What are her expectations? And how can we actually really work together to make this a long-term win-win relationship? Because in any healthcare company, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself before, if you keep someone in your business and they're happy for 5-10 years, they are going to be an absolute weapon. They're going to be amazing with your clients. They're going to be a ball of knowledge, and other people, the younger therapists within the team, are going to look up to them and be able to learn from them. My third question is, what podcasts or books do you like to listen to or read? Now, the reason I like to ask this question is I want to understand, what does this person consume for their mind? Because just by hearing what sort of podcasts or books someone listens to or reads, I can get a pretty good understanding of this person and the type of content that's going into their mind. And you could think of like this, if someone was to, and these would be extreme examples here, but if someone was to watch the news every single night, that's the type of content that they're allowing into their brain. They're probably going to see the world in a certain fearful, distorted way, because we know that fear sells on the news. And if that is the content that is going into your mind, you are going to perceive the world in a certain way, or be more likely to. If you look on the other side of that, and someone says they love listening to Simon Sinek's books, they really like Robert Kiyosaki, Brene Brown. If that is the type of content and education going into this person's mind, I'd be looking at those two people. I'd be willing to bet that this person sees the world in a very different way than this other person, purely because of the content that is going into their mind on a daily basis. Fourth question: how comfortable do you feel having a tough conversation with a team member or a leader or a manager? And what would increase that number? Now, what we're trying to understand here is on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being zero confidence, not happy to do it at all, I avoid it at all costs, and 10 being I'm super confident and I absolutely go and do that every single time that it needs to be had. Where does someone sit? Because understanding that is going to help us to understand how do we need to support this person. Because the more people in our team that are closer towards a 10 on that scale, the less conflict we're going to have within the team, because we're going to be resolving the issues when they arise. So many times when I work with a team, I get called in to work with a team and I'll run a culture day for them and I'll go through having tough conversations. And I get people to raise their hand. I ask, are there little things that frustrate you in your role? And pretty much everyone's hand goes up. And I ask them, are there any big things, like really big things, that are frustrating you in your role? And they go, not really. Very rare we get a hand go up then. And I ask them why. Why are there no big things that are the challenge in their role? But why are there lots of little things? And what the answers that I seem to get from all of the different people and teams that I've worked with are that when there's a big thing, we're forced to talk about it. We're forced to resolve that. And so it gets dealt with. But the little things, we go, it's not that big a deal. No, maybe they didn't mean it, all right? And we don't resolve those as well. I don't want it to feel petty, whatever it is. We don't resolve them too well. And one from my own team, one thing that we used to get really frustrated at was I would come into my treatment room and we'd work in shift models. So I'd come in after the person who'd done the morning and the bin was overflowing. And I just felt like they weren't respecting my time. I then had to clean up the bin from the person in the morning, and it took up time where I was hoping to be preparing to see clients. And it became a bit of a systemic issue within the clinic where, because the person before you did it, you kind of left that bin, not kind of, you left that bin for the next person. And so because everyone did it, everyone started to do it. But everyone thought it was too silly to bring up and actually have a conversation about. And so often it's these little things that balloon into big things over time and become the biggest frustrations for people in our teams. And it all boils down to not being confident to have the tough conversation, to be able to give people feedback when it's necessary. So we want to understand, where is someone right now and how can we help them to improve? Question number 5 is, what would be your ideal work schedule in this role on a daily and a weekly basis? So here, all we're trying to understand is, how do they work best? If I said, here's your 38 hours or your 30 hours or whatever it is, how would you organize this into your week? We get to actually see inside their mind to how they would map this out. Because if you ask me that question, I would probably put the work hours from about 5:30 in the morning till about midday. Because for me, I'm a morning person. I work so much better there. Now, understandably, in healthcare, if we're working one-on-one with people, we can't necessarily do that. But it'll be interesting to see, where do they put these and what is their reasoning for doing it? I've asked this question to a physio before, and what he said was I would put them in the afternoons, evenings, early mornings, and on a Saturday, because that's going to be easiest to build a list and to get people to come in. And so seeing how people think through that process, I think, is quite interesting. Question number 6 is, what is the best way to give you feedback? And this is so essential when we're working with someone in any role at all, is how can we give this person feedback? How do they best take this on board? Because for some people, and I've asked this of my own team, I've asked this of teams that I've worked with as well. Some people say, I would like it as soon as possible and just be blunt, be really direct, because I don't want you to come in and say, hey, how's your day going? How's your cat? Yes. What are you doing on the weekend? And then jump straight into that feedback because it feels very fake beforehand. Everything that was done up to there felt very fake. That person to me said, can you just say, hey, can I give you some feedback about this? And we just have a very direct conversation. I've had other people who have said, I would really hate that if we just had a direct conversation. What I would love is could you send me an email the day before to say, I would like to have a meeting about this, and we're going to be going over these things in this meeting. Now, me personally, I would hate that. I would be thinking about that every second up until that meeting, and I wouldn't love it at all. But I have to remember that I'm not giving feedback to me, I'm giving feedback to other people. And that allows this person time to think it through because for how they like to receive feedback, that is what they want. And so this is a fantastic question to start to understand how aware or self-aware is this person of the best way to give them feedback. And also, if you end up hiring this person, fantastic. Jot these things down and keep notes of these because you're going to have a great understanding of, well, how do I give this person feedback to help them to become the best version of themselves? Question 7, and this one's a doozy. I love this one. What is your favorite movie and who is your favorite character in that movie? And I can't take credit for this one. This is from a mentor of mine, Sam Ovens. And the reason I love this one so much is that he says, when you pick your favorite movie and especially your favorite character within that movie, the reason you love it so much and you relate to it so much is you portray yourself into that role. And that can tell you a lot about someone because when someone comes into an interview, no one's going to walk into the interview and tell you that I'm quite lazy and I like to gossip about people behind people's back. And, I just really don't like doing one percenters. I'm not about that. People aren't going to tell you that. They're going to tell you what they think you want them to hear. And for so many questions, they've been guided through those. They've been coached on how to do them. They go online, they read, how should I answer these questions? Right? There's entire articles on Seek on how to answer different interview questions. But I very much doubt anyone has been coached on how to answer the question, what is your favorite movie and who is your favorite character within that movie? And so it gets them thinking very raw to them, what is that favorite movie and what is that favorite character? And if we think about like what are the qualities of that character? What are they like within that movie? And why would this person relate to that favorite character? And if someone says, my favorite movie is Saw 3, and I relate to John in that movie, then I'll probably be running from that one. Question 8 is, what is your secret to productivity? And I love this question because I get to hear so many awesome things that people have come up with to improve their productivity. It helps me to understand the person that's in front of me, what they see as being productivity, and how they achieve it in their own life and their own work. And my final question is, when you're feeling stressed and you're feeling burnt out, what are the signs for you? And how can a leader or a manager help to support you during that time? And sometimes people need a little bit of a hand here to think, well, what does he mean by this? What are the signs? What signs are we talking about? And the example I give is for me, when I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling burnt out, the first thing that goes is I actually stop going to bed at a regular time. I start staying up later. The second thing that happens is I start exercising less. And for me, then the third thing that happens that I notice is the diet starts to drop off. So I start eating more junk food, comfort eating, right? So those things, when they happen in my life, I know I'm starting to feel stressed. I'm starting to feel burnt out. And understanding and asking them this question helps them to self-reflect and go, and they may never have thought of this before. So it's a great exercise for them to do, but it helps them to give you some very valuable information about if you're working with this person, how can you actually best support them? And how self-aware are they of when they are getting stressed and they are getting burnt out? Because if we can nip that in the bud early, if we can get on top of that and help and support them, it's going to look a whole lot different than if that same person were to just ignore it to the point where they go, oh, I just can't do this anymore. And we've seen this before. I've seen this in my business I'm sure you've seen that in your business as well. You may have even seen it in your own life. You let things just build up to a certain point, it hits boiling point, and something just has to change straight away. So if we are working with you and we're supporting you, how can we make sure that we're doing a fantastic job of offering you world-class support? So there you have it, my friends. These are my 9 top questions to help you to understand if the person in front of you is a culture fit for your team, to help you avoid the issues and the stress involved with bringing the wrong person onto the bus and the challenges that come with that over time. I'd love to know in the comments, what did you think? Are there some questions that I missed that I should add in for future videos or for future reference? And as always, like and subscribe for more great content. I'll see you in the next video.